Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Cito, and tonight we will be sharing experiences, true paranormal stories from the web, a different time, and I'll explain what I mean once we get into it. As always, you can find all episodes of the show along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And support is never expected but always appreciated. And there are many ways to support the show. You can always share the show with others and rate and review it on your favorite podcast platform. You can also check out or sign up for the Patreon feed and get all the extra content there um, for as little as $1 a month. And you can check out the merchandise store website where you can get all kinds of shirts and some other items with designs made by friends of the show. Also, please follow friends of the show. That would, of course, be Jen, the Arcane Observer, who has her own channel and is the co-host of this show on Saturdays when she's able to make it. Also, will be joining me tonight, and we'll get to her just in a minute or two here. And Ricky of the Anything Is Possible podcast. I join him on his show on Sunday nights, where he talks all things paranormal, and I help out as well as I can there. And Trouble Minds Radio. And the Michael Strange, I should say, if I could talk. Michael Strange, host of, there we go, Trouble Minds Radio, and the Trouble Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear all kinds of amazing shows, as well as my own, online 24/7 for free. And so this is going to be a little bit different. This is something that was discussed a little while back, a little ways back now, and I finally decided to just see if we could do this tonight, and it looks like it's going to work. So my idea was that I'm not sure if it was even my idea. Well, let's just do this. Jen, welcome to the show, because we talked about this a while ago, and I don't remember who thought of it first.
I don't know. I remember thinking that it'd be a good idea to kind of just do, because I didn't think we had ever done it, or we just kind of went over all of your experiences and kind of tried to look at them and examine them, as thoroughly as possible and just kind of talk about it a little bit more. I know that you've gone onto other channels and talked about it, but I know that you've kind of referenced on occasion your experiences on your channel when it comes up that something might ring a bell for you as well, like whenever you've heard an encounter and it reminds you of an encounter you've had. But I dedicated a show to discussing or talking about your experiences and really kind of, digging into them a little bit more as much as we can. So, yeah, we talked about it a while ago. I think it was sort of, I don't know, I think I pushed it. I think I pushed the idea initially. And then I appreciate you obliging it.
Of course, and I'm glad I checked to make sure because I can't remember whose idea it was, and I think it's a great idea. And this will be a series that we just come back to here and there because it's going to take a lot more than one show to cover everything. But and
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I did cover my experiences on my show. I don't know, a year or two ago, 3 years ago, in a series of shows, but that was a little while ago. So, and this is that, but more. I like to think so. I think it'll be great, and thank you for being here with me as always, Jen.
Absolutely.
So I've been thinking about this today and sort of preparing for this, and I've decided I'm going to approach this by location in terms of sort all this out because there's no way I can remember chronological order through all the places I've had experiences in the last 30 years of my life, just about. So I thought we'd start with the house that my aunt and uncle and their my cousins used to live in, because that's where I had, as far as I can remember, my first experience, and my first experiences really. And so I'm just going to go ahead and start here, Jen, and then whenever you have a question, you can just jump in and we'll go from there.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. And a good way to lay it out.
Yeah. So I the family had just moved into the house when I was about 13 or 14, around there. I'm, as I always tell everyone, for those that are new to the show, I am terrible at remembering dates and times and all these things. So everything is going to be pretty vague as far as that goes. But it was around that time in my life, and I was close with the son. It was my aunt, uncle, and their two daughters and a son, and I was close with him. He's a few years younger than me, and in fact, I think he just turned 40. Yeah, he just turned 40 this year. So, and I can say that because I don't think he ever listens to the show. He's not really into these things. But so they had just moved in, and they were still unpacking everything because it was a family of five. And my cousin, though I used to go and visit him a lot, almost every weekend, every other weekend, throughout the year, and I didn't really have friends that I went and visited as I was a kid growing up a ton. So he was kind of, it was really just him and I for a long time as far as me going anywhere outside of school. And so I go over that, and I was excited because they had this new house and it was huge compared to their last house. And my cousin decided we would camp out in the basement because they had a couch bed down there. And we were not interested in anything to do with the paranormal or supernatural or anything like that yet. We were just kids, so that we were into video games and music. So both our dads are in a classic rock band together, and have been since before we were born, and that kind of stuff. So TV shows, cartoon shows, and so we didn't realize that two of the most common places for paranormal activity, according to tropes, are basements and attics. But we decided to stay down there, and they had all their belongings. Things are still so the basement floor it was cement, and but it was covered in a lot of stuff, and but they had pathways everywhere to get to everything, and they had the lights in that basement. You had to pull a string to turn each one on or off on its own. So we only had the light on above us, and then the light by the stairs on because that's where the bathroom was upstairs. And there was they also had these clotheslines hung up along near the ceiling, going between the rafters and the support poles and all that. And they had sheets hanging on them at the time. I guess they had just washed all their linens and all that. And this couch bed was a good size, so it was more than enough room for both my cousin and I. And we were just sitting there, half laying. I I don't remember now what it was about because it was 30 years ago. But just cartoon shows, all that stuff probably. But we were facing the back of the basement, which is behind the stairwell, and so that's the darkest part of the basement because there's nothing, no lights in there, and so but we were just talking and not thinking much, but we looked back there at one point and we both saw something above the clothesline, the furthest clothesline out there in that direction, and it was just the head of an older woman, and I could see her hair was done. It was curly, kind of done like in a circle around her head. Um, and I could see her. She had glasses on, and I could see she was frowning at us. And I feel like her eyes were blue or a light color, but I'm not. I don't remember it for sure now. But even then, I knew that I should not have seen her as a kid, given the fact that I was born legally blind and I am extremely nearsighted. And but I was seeing her clearly, and I could tell she was sort of frowning and glaring at us, like, "Who are you? And what are you doing here?" And my cousin was seeing the same thing, and he has well, he had normal vision. It's getting slowly getting worse as he's getting older, but at the time he had normal regular vision, and she didn't say anything, didn't move, just was there looking at us, which still freaked us out because the other thing about it was when we looked down at the floor. there were no feet, and there was nothing for anyone to stand on. So we knew it wasn't a regular person, uh, and that freaked us out. And we didn't know what to do. We talked about it. Uh, talked about going and getting his family, but then if we were afraid if we brought them down there and this lady was gone, we'd be in trouble for making things up and or at the very least waking everyone up because it was at night, and we didn't want to do that. So we just ended up staying there, and of course we didn't think about at the time just going upstairs and sleeping somewhere else. Um, we just decided not to look in that direction anymore, and that's how we saw something else that night. That at first we thought was regular, normal. We saw a cat when we looked in a different direction, and it was a black cat, had these orange yellow eyes, and was just looking at us, watching us. And the odd thing was I hadn't heard anything move or seen anything move, and my cousin hadn't either. But we still thought it was probably just a regular cat, and either had gotten in during the move or it had already been there when the family moved in and just had been hidden. And we both like cats, so we decided to go over and see what it was like and everything. And uh, we got out of the couch bed, and to do that, we had to look away from the cat, and also still trying not to look at the lady in the corner. And when we turned around to go towards the cat, it was not there anymore. And with all the stuff on the floor, I feel like we should have heard something if the cat had walked or run away. Uh, but we didn't hear anything, and I didn't hear anything, and I was already at that age getting used to listening to a lot of things because of my eyes, and so that freaked us out. And so again, could have gone either way. We could have fled upstairs. We didn't. We just retreated back to the bed, and got back in the bed and decided we're just going to look at each other until we fall asleep, hopefully. And that's what we did that night. And we looked back at that place where the cat had been, and it was back again. And again, no sound. So yeah, we just decided to look at each other, and then that was what we did until we fell asleep. And next morning, woke up, and it was coming in from the windows near the ceiling, and everything was fine. And we just figured, well, hopefully that was the last that we'd have of any kind of that experience, and that it wasn't. But yeah, that was my first experience, and I'm pretty sure my cousin's first experience too. And he never had any experiences in that house when I wasn't there. So I don't know what it was about me or about us together, but apparently that's what it took for either of us to have experiences there. So
And maybe it created like a type of environment, when you were there, kind of you get, these young kids kind of hanging out. And what time of the day was it, I wonder? Obviously late at night. Like, do you think it was early in the like
yeah,
deep in the night, or was it like early in the night?
I want to say it had been too late because we hadn't discovered the joys of playing video games all night. We were still kind of we didn't really have many video games yet, so it was probably like I don't know 10 or 11,
Yeah.
and I don't think it was too late.
But
We
your
did,
presence being there.
yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. I was saying we did the all nighters didn't start until um, he we, he got some better video game systems, and we ended up sitting up and playing all night. So that was like a year or two later. But anyway, yeah, it's not yet.
I wonder if just the energy of, well, initially they had just moved into the house, and this is where you would
Hmm.
go to kind of get out of your own house and, spread your wings at this minor level. So there was, I think, even for him too, it'd probably be similar. I imagine that this was a special occasion, and the energy would be kind of escalated. That you guys were both having, something fun. That you're, something fun and different from what you usually do. And I'm guessing that the basement was like the hangout area for you two versus his bedroom or something, or was it his bedroom?
It became his bedroom because the basement was used more for storage. They did have times over the years where they would kind of use it as another living room, but that never really took hold. They kind of it was mostly for storage, and then sometimes they would have like parties down there or whatever, and clear things out of the way. But yeah, mostly it was storage, and mostly we stayed in his room.
So it was a
So
big
yeah,
space.
yeah, yeah, definitely. It was. I mean, it was the entire. Let's see here. It was the entire like one side of the house. Uh,
Right.
like everything except for the garage side, I believe. So yeah, it was a
And
good sized basement.
so when you were looking at it from the bed, it was like quite a ways away, I guess. Actually, was or how close was it?
It was across the room, so I'm I'm guessing. I mean, yeah, I don't really know measurements and all that. Not very good with that, but it was definitely on the opposite end of a large one room basement. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, had to have been several feet away.
And enough for you to be able to see it pretty clearly too. So that's
Well, that
interesting.
was yeah. The thing is, I shouldn't have been able to see it because I'm extremely near it, and so that shocked me at the time because even that was not normal. But it was still close enough to where my cousin could see it, and for all I know, it could have been projecting to him too. But I don't know for sure on that. It might not have had to with him, but it could have still done. I don't know.
Yeah. But you'd never seen it before that? Like, ever seen anything not that particularly, but any that was your first paranormal experience?
The first I know of for sure, there's one that I can't remember when it happened, and it might have been before or it might have been after. But it's the first one that I know for sure happened before, like 99% of my other experiences. Yeah, so pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's interesting too at,
and
like, 13 or 14 to have that happen, for the
yeah,
first
and
experience, and in a basement, as you pointed out. Makes sense. I mean, that's completely used to the trope. And then in a house. But then I'm interested to see what the other stories are you're going to tell as far as. But I mean, one thing in particular, the casting out, the projection of the cat. The
hmm
two, I mean, I would assume that they're linked. That the apparition behind the sheet was able to project out the cat to distract for a second or two or something. I'm interested to hear the rest of it or and more.
yeah, I don't know if they were connected or one was projecting the other. I'm not really sure. It could have been. It's I know that we did look uh, to the back a couple of times throughout that time, and this lady's head was still there above that clothesline. So, but yeah, so that was the first night, and for how many times it was like I don't know 3 or 4 times later that I went back there, that we had our next experience, and it was we had decided not to sleep in the basement anymore, not surprisingly, and we were just asleep. Decided to sleep in the front living room or sitting room area instead, and just lay on blankets on the floor. And it was summertime, so it was not. We didn't really need to be covered up or anything. And so we were just laying on the floor, and my cousin, think he was almost ready to go to sleep, but not quite. I was always the last one to go to sleep because I'm a night owl, and I didn't even know it then. And but we were talking and started to slow down, but we noticed this light coming from the stairwell that led floor, coming down the stairs, and it was a white light. It was as tall as a person, uh, oval shaped, like an oval shaped light. No hands or feet, but the weirdest thing about it, and I've never heard any other experience like this, and all the things I've read and heard about. There was this just the claw, like one single cat's claw, in the middle of this thing, but it was giant. like it was not the size of a regular cat's claw. I still don't know what that means. Um, but this came down the stairs and floated. It didn't really walk or anything like that. It didn't have legs. And it came down the stairs and came into the room that we were in, floated right by our feet, and then turned and floated right by me, past me, and into the dining room behind us. And my cousin was frozen. I didn't like the idea of it being behind us without knowing where it was going. So I actually got up, sat up, and looked around the corner and saw this thing float through the dining room table and chairs and then out through the back wall of the house, which had a window, waist height window, and it floated out into the backyard, and I lost sight of it there. But I don't know what it was, but it was it just floated slowly. It didn't seem to notice us, as far as I could tell. Uh, at least never gave any sign of that. It just went in its way. But I saw that thing one other time, another weekend after that. Um, and the other time I saw it, I was the only one that saw it because my cousin had fallen asleep. And that time we were in his bedroom, and he had one of those desks with a bunk bed on top of it. And so he was asleep on the bed on top, and I was just sleeping on the floor on the bottom. And it was a couple weeks later, and this light started coming through the bedroom door, and it was this cat's claw in it, and it just stopped. And that time, I do think it noticed me, uh, because it stopped. And of course, it was right in front of the door, so I couldn't really get out if I wanted to. And it was just stayed in position and where it was. But then I started seeing these blurs of light in between it and me, and they sort of changed shape and got longer and bigger until they were, which was disturbing. And they were the shapes. They look like not gory, but they look like the limbs of a person, the arms and the legs, and with the hands and the feet on them, just floating and moving slightly in between me and this thing. And that did frighten me quite a bit. But also, I'm trying to move to try to get past it. So I just closed my eyes and tried not to move or to think much about what I had just seen. And as we hear so much with all these experiences, somehow I fell asleep, which makes no sense. But it is what happened, and it is what happens with other people's experiences too. So that's the two times I saw that particular thing. Was it the same as the woman in the basement, or the cat in the basement? Or were they all separate? I have no idea.
I mean, at this point, so all these years have passed. You had this strange experience. I've never heard of anything of the kind with like the light, with like the cat's claw. That's extremely interesting. But had you, I mean, what were you thinking at this point about what was going on here? Like, what did you, have you, from everything you've heard since as you're grown and everything, and all the years have gone by and all the experiences you've had, have you come to any kind of conclusion about what could have been occurring?
Not really. Um, I do think I don't think it was. I don't know that it was meant to be negative or that it was negative or evil or anything like that. Because it was frightening, but it also never harmed me in any way or my cousin. It was just things that showed themselves to us, and and at the time I didn't know what to think either. And but I remember thinking at the time all these things were happening. I had never heard of these things before, and so I don't remember talking to anyone about them for years because I just felt like who's going to believe me if I do talk about all these things, with anyone. So I don't think my family knew until many years later. And yeah, so it's I didn't really know what to make of it. I just knew it wasn't normal. And as far as I could tell, of course, all the research that we do, it's kind of it's maybe not normal, but it's not as rare as I thought at the time as a kid. Of course, so um, yeah,
No, I
and
think
that's
it
the
is
list.
rare. I do think it actually
Yeah,
is really rare. You know,
yeah.
people have encounters and things like that, but there have been people I've asked if they've ever had anything unusual happen, and they'll say no, nothing ever. And then I've
Hmm.
talked to other people, and they've had something, you know, at some point later in life, you know, or they had one experience when they were younger, but to continue to have these experiences is interesting, I think. And then if did the I guess you wouldn't know for sure if the family had been experiencing more than that. It seems like it was a mild, like nothing serious going on. It wasn't like a super haunting where it made the people move out or anything like that, like you see in movies or anything like that. It was more of a functional haunting, the way that you would have, you know, a true sort of leftover energy in the house. It sounds like possibly the energy of some woman and her cat or something of the kind, possibly sort of leaving these traces around. But I was interested to hear what kind of theories you had come up with over time of what you kind of thought it could have meant, you know. And it just
Yeah,
sounds like it's like an echo of something, but there was a lot at work there. Like the movement in front of you of I don't know. And then the combination of the cat with the glowing light or that being used as a way to show itself. And then too, with their stuff, it could have been something to do with the house, or you know, I don't know if maybe the family itself. You know, all of their things were down in the basement. I don't know. Maybe it could have even been something that it could have been you know, maybe even a relation, possibly. But I mean, yeah, I guess it's left up to and not an interesting experience. So
yeah. I
I
do
don't know.
feel like um the maybe not the first time, but the second time I saw that white light with the cat's claw in it, that was aware. There was some kind of awareness there. Same with the woman in the basement, and something that when I went on Into the Fray, the host on there, Shannon LeGros, she made a connection that I hadn't thought of before, which is that I saw the head of the woman, or we saw the head of the woman in the basement, and then I saw arms and legs. So, is there a significance to that or not? And of course, I don't know, but um, it is odd. And those were the only sightings we had there. Even after that, for a few weeks, we heard sounds in the house in the daytime, and it was always except for one occasion that I'll get into, but it was always the sounds of doors opening or closing on the ground floor when my cousin and I were alone in the house. Because I was a teenager at that point, and we weren't going anywhere. I wasn't driving anywhere, um, and so during the daytime, sometimes the family would leave us there while they did errands, and we'd be there for us by ourselves for a bit, and we'd go down there. First couple of times we went down there to see who was home. We knew no one had pulled into the driveway because at the time my cousin's room was right above the garage and the driveway, and all the doors were just as they had been when we went upstairs to begin with. That I do think could have been residual, although it's also tricky because after a while, those sounds did stop. Um, but there was one other time. The only other experience I had there directly uh, we had there was this one day. My dad used to collect and sell and trade trading cards. And, I forget what we were doing exactly. We were sorting out some of his cards into some kind of categories. I forget now what it was. Um, but we were sitting again, which I forgot to mention is right above the part in the basement where we saw that woman's head. Um, we were sitting in that room on the floor and just talking, and we heard a bump, underneath the floor, basically on the ceiling of the basement, beneath the couch, at the far end of the room, behind us, behind me, of course. And at first we thought, oh, it's plumbing, electricity, whatever, something in the house settling. And so we didn't think much and just kept on talking. And a little while later, we had another bump, and it was a little bit loud, and it was a little bit further away from the wall, from in the couch. And we kept on talking, just hoping we were right, and it was just plumbing or whatever. And it happened a couple more times, and every time it happened, we just tried to we just kept on talking, didn't ignore it, but it kept on happening, and every time it happened, it got louder and closer of the room. And finally, the last time when it did that, it was in the center of the room, and the impact made the floor shake slightly, vibrate slightly. And we decided that we were just going to go and sit out on the porch until someone got home, because we were still kids. And that's what we did. We waited until my uncle, his dad, got home, and then went back in, and everything was fine. But and after that, that's all the experiences that we had in that house. I do have more, but it's more of the out of body experiences in the house. But so there was the sightings, and then there were sounds after that. So a lot going on there.
I'm looking forward to hearing the out of body experiences you're going to describe. I'm curious, have you at some point now developed any kind of a sort of a worldview about what may be happening? Either do you think that this is the afterlife? Do you think that these are individuals who have passed on? Do you think this is something else? I mean, what do you think it is? Could it be, have you come up to any kind of concepts about what helps to explain what you experienced? Do you think, I think ultimately, do you think that this is the remnants of someone who has passed away, or the memories attached to the house, or some mixture of these different ideas? Have you come to some kind of way of explaining it in your mind about what the worldview is, as far as based off your experiences? Has it affected in that way, or have you just do you think it's something else besides that? Do you think it's some type of psychic projection or something of the kind? What have you to conclude, if at all?
I don't know. I just know there was some that felt, some of the things there felt like it was aware, like it was sentient, like the woman in the corner, even the cat to some felt they were watching us. That white thing with the white light with the claw in it. The second time, first time I didn't really sense much of a awareness in it, so that could have been residual. But the second time, when it stopped right in front of me, that felt like it was aware. Sounds on the ground floor, they could have been residual. Um, the I don't know what the bumps, the knocks on the floor or the ceiling underneath us was. That seemed to me kind of deliberate. So I don't know if it was spirits of deceased people from before, or what it was. I tried to look into the history of the area online several years ago. Didn't really find anything right at the time, but then again, I didn't really know where to look. Uh, but yeah, so I'm not sure what all was going on there. It did seem to be, as far as I know, no one else has ever had, no one else in my family ever had experiences there. And like I said, the only ones that did was my cousin, but only when we were together at the house, and only really in the first few years, couple of years for him being there, and then eventually it seemed to overall it really faded as we got older, which sort of makes sense given the one thing. A lot of kids have experiences, and then sometimes these experiences stop happening so much as you get older. Now I'm the exception there. My cousin, as far as I know, did not have any other experiences outside of that house and our grandparents' house, which will probably be another show. Um, but uh, but beyond that, I don't think he ever had any experiences anywhere else. And again, I don't know if he ever had any. I know that all those experiences that he had at my grandparents' house, I was always there with them when they happened too. So there's something weird about that. I don't know, the combination of us or just me. Who knows? But there is a history of sensitivity in my family. My older son, she's had some experiences. My grandma was somewhat sensitive, and she told me that her dad, my great grandpa, who I never met, um, was always very very sensitive to all these different energies and things. So apparently, it does run in that side of that family.
Well, like a type of seer, being able to see these things. I mean, there's a possibility that what you were seeing was even just some type of other, you know, life form entirely.
Mhm.
It may not even be
Yeah,
related to any kind of haunting as far as it may not even be a memory left over in the house. It could have been there was a type of entity that was living there in the house, that was hearing this certain way. So there's always that possibility. But I think, for you to have these experiences, it would insinuate that you're some type of a seer, that you've received a gift. And there are thoughts about this, that it's a gift. And, you know, it's something that just is not to be looked at as anything negative, but just that happens.
yeah, and that's a big part of why I want to do this podcast is that overall, I think I've had like two or three negative experiences ever out of maybe four or five total. I don't know, dozens, maybe 100 experiences total. So that's really not too bad. And I'm not saying that the negative stuff or the stuff that is perceived as negative or both does not exist. It's I have not had as much of that. And so many of the reports of what I find, it seems to track and seems to be similar in general. There are always exceptions, but yeah. So and I do think it's a some kind of a gift, and I wonder if it's like me because of my low vision, it's some kind of a station in a way. Maybe that's why I've had so many experiences, and also I have had so many experiences with just paranormal dreams, paranormal traveling in my sleep, uh, through other things like that, out of body experiences or whatever else it may be. It's possible as
I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, at the time, this could have been happening too. I think that that you're going to use other senses because it's just one of the senses. And so if it was giving you difficulty then, you would rely upon all the other senses and it'd make you, not hypersensitive, but, people would probably think of it that way, but more that you're, you know, seeing with more of your senses the environment and then they're appearing to you in this particular way. And I guess it's fairly, your companion too, that he also saw, very basically, did he also see the same thing? He saw the cat.
yeah,
He saw the woman, assuming. And then on
yep,
occasions, that might have been timing alone. And that could have been, like, say, like, if there was an actual entity that wasn't related to any type of haunting, it could have been aware that you're seeing it. It's almost like whenever you're sitting in a room and you kind of sense that someone's looking at you and you turn around and turns out that there is just someone looking at you, at that time. Sort of that.
right,
I imagine these entities have a similar sense like that, and then would perceive that you're aware of them being there, and that might be
yeah,
enough to draw their attention, or they're aware that you would be able to be aware of them being there. You know, I'll let
yeah,
you go on, but I think that you're able to, obviously you're able to see, and people try to, but throughout history, and all the time in every family, at least in most families. And there are these individuals who do have, that compulsion, and sometimes it's for good or it's for bad. I do think too, if you were to take yourself and put, depending on the environment, you know, and that might be fortunate for you of why you've had too many negative experiences. It might have to do with, that you're fortunate that you're in certain locations that aren't overly negative, and you may have developed
Yeah,
a type of like a protective mechanism as well, or in situations where you might encounter not just, I'm not talking about just hauntings or ghosts, but
right.
there could be literal entities.
Oh yeah. Yep, I agree. And the other thing too with my senses is it's even worse than just low vision I have because I also have no sense of smell and limited senses of touch and taste. So the only one of my physical, what people consider to be normal senses that works well is my hearing. So yeah, I do think that the compensation could be a factor in all that. Also, yeah, I've been very lucky. I've been very lucky that I've had a very stable relationship over the years. And I'm not there's no major drama in general with them. So I know that I'm sure that's helped too. And yeah, I do. Especially as I got older, I always I learned how to trust what I felt from whatever I was experiencing, and but also be aware that I might be wrong about it. But really, all we can do is do those two things. Just go with what we feel, but also be aware we could be wrong. And I think that goes with everything, everyday physical existence as well as so. But yeah, the that house after the family moved out, I figured, well, that's probably all that's going to happen with me in that house. I'm done with that. I'm sure. And no, not quite. There's two locations in this town where I live still, where I every so often I still go and visit them in some kind of out of body or astral or it even feels like in some cases alternate or parallel universe travel kind of, I don't know, way of traveling um, where I go there every so often and have the experiences and uh, one of them is that house and the other is the house of my grandparents and so but with my aunt and uncle's former house I years later I would say this would have been like 20 years ago now I had a dream one day it was about maybe a year or two after that had been sold to Cloud's family. I had this dream one day about the house, and it was in the middle of the day, which was fine because I had fallen asleep in the middle of the day, and I, I was in the house. There was furniture. I didn't recognize any of the furniture, and I was just sort of moving around the house. It didn't feel like I was walking. It was more like I was just drifting or floating through the house, and I knew it was I didn't recognize any of the and I felt like I was there and I could just tell it was not a memory as far as it felt. And it until I sort of got tired and while I was in that form that works and everything started to fade and I woke up. And so that was the first of a few of those similar kinds of experiences. Had another one years later where I was back and it was empty. There was no furniture in any of the rooms. And I drifted around the top floor instead of the bottom floor, and then for a time, and then came back here. And there was another time where I had this on the show before too, where I found myself in the basement, and it was again in the middle of the day. I could see light coming in from outside through the windows, and there was I could hear people on the ground floor talking, and I could see that there was the basement was still being used for storage, and I saw some bags, and I have this vague memory in that experience of seeing a bag and seeing a envelope, like a red envelope, and picking up out of the bag, which I don't know how I could have done, but and then looking at it and then putting it down back in the bag again, and going to the stairs because I heard these voices. And again, I was just drifting or floating. Didn't feel like walking, but I went up the steps and got to the door, and I almost went through, but then I stopped because I was thinking, what am I going to, what's going to happen if I do go through that door and I see the people, and if what are they going to see or what are they going to hear if I go towards them? If it's nothing, then that's fine, but I don't want out in their own home. So I literally just stopped at the top of the stairs and and stayed there until everything started to go to fade to black, and but those are just the regular out of body experiences I had with that house. There's others where the house looked different than it actually was in terms of different rooms existing there that did not exist in the real world. Um, it being bigger than it in the real world, which is odd because it's in the middle of a neighborhood with houses on either side of it. So I don't know how that would happen. So, but yeah, if you want on just the out of body experiences, Jen, you can go ahead with that to start with.
Well, I mean, I think that there's something about family homes like that where there have been people living in houses over and over again. Like I had in my family, there was a home that a couple of generations grew up in, and now it's a rental property. You know, it just passes through a certain way. And
Right.
I said that house, I still go look at it, and it held several of family that grew up there, born there, grew up there, including myself. And now it's a rental. Now, what's interesting is like seeing the entire, if the house itself contained all the information, if time doesn't exist, and you're able to see sort of the energy of the house or what it will be one day or what it has been in the past, and not only that, but what it, the other version of what the space is. So even if the rooms were bigger or there are rooms that weren't there before, could have just like how we are not what we appear to be. The house is like that as well, and it takes on the. I wouldn't say the people living it, but yeah, I would, the memories and the energy of the. I hate the term energy all the time. We don't know what else to call it,
Mm-hmm.
but basically the
Yeah.
essence of the people living there, and you could have. It's so unfamiliar because now it's not what it was, but you could have been seeing that then. You could have been seeing back then what it was before or what it was after or something of the kind. So, and the idea that time not existing, that somehow you're able to see it, something to that effect, perhaps. And then with the out of body, just that you're basically yourself and your senses to see into that realm, especially in the sleep state. That's I think in the sleep state we are seeing more than we see in the waking world. And we're seeing what the subconscious is wanting to communicate to us about the environment or about anything in particular. So that's kind of what I think about that.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about because I do think that out of body experiences when you're in that state you can go to or at least see into any other time. So I could have been seeing the house before my family was there and not just after. So that's a fascinating thought. It brings up some things. I'll touch back on this when I in the other in another episode in this series when we get to it about my grandparents' house because there's a bit of possible in there as well through sleep and through out of body experiences. But um, yeah, in that house, I there is one experience I had just a few years ago that still it's amazing to me and it also cracks me up because It was I had it when I was sitting here in my chair listening to Troubled Minds Radio. Actually, I fell asleep listening to the show and found myself in that house again, sitting in the rocking chair that was there, and it looked like it looked like the chair that my family used to have there for a time, but also the other furniture did not look. And there were people coming and going in front of me, in and out through the door leading to the back porch or deck, huge wooden deck, and and they were all dressed like it was summertime, which didn't make sense because it was February. It was like this time of the year when this happened, and I didn't recognize any of them, and they never looked at me at all. And they were carrying like plates and cups like it was a party of some kind. And eventually, that stopped. That flow of people stopped, and I was alone in the room. And I got up in this experience, whatever this was. I felt like I was there, but I didn't hardly ever feel like I have feet. It's like I'm just there in some kind of almost like I guess you could imagine like a the shape of a person maybe, but not quite with arms and legs. But it's just a fascinating thing to think about some of the apparitions that people see. But maybe they're out of body experiences other people are having. But I was looking at the TV because it was the sound was coming from the TV. The Michael Strange's show was coming from the TV, and it's the show I had been listening to live. It was not. It was a live show because eventually it stopped. The show ended, and I was looking at it was just like a streaming platform um, uh, interface kind of thing on the TV screen. And but when I stood up and looked outside, I was surprised to see any snow on the ground or on the deck. And I opened the door a little bit and I looked outside, and all I could see coming down from the sky were these lines of light, like in a diagonal, all different colors of light coming down from the sky, basically filling it. And that really freaked me out. So I closed the door and looked back at the TV. And eventually the show stopped and everything went quiet. And I could sense someone wasn't in the house. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to investigate the house or not because I wasn't sure who this other presence was. So I just stayed there, standing by the TV until everything faded again, and woke up here, sitting in my, and the show had indeed stopped. So um, I don't know what that was, but it was a really vivid, wild experience that I had a few years ago.
I think you were just in the in between. I mean, in your sleep state, a sort of lucidity that you were able to see. You know, you're just walking in between both, and so you had a bleed over, and then your mind is applying the visuals of where you're at, but it's also picking up another sense of what it's hearing because you weren't unconscious to that. It's still perceiving that, so you were like wide open, hearing and sensing all of these things at once, and so they were blending them together. Your mind way was blending all of it together and shaping what you were seeing. So what you were seeing was just what you were feeling and what you might have been smelling and hearing and all of your senses at once. And that's why it was producing this confusing circumstance that was also very insightful, but it contained all of it at the same time. And then I do think that a lot of this has to do with not necessarily what people would call time travel, but the time not being what we think it is, and then being able to see something that will be, even though, or what has been, though it's not right now and doesn't make any sense. You could never have imagined then what would be happening in that location later, kind of with the previous story. But no, I think you were just liminally walking in between both realms of the deep unconscious, subconscious mind, and then your conscious mind was still staying active, and that's why I was hearing the radio show or something. I mean, I would think that it'd be like that in a way.
Yeah, could
Just
be.
it could be. I don't know.
Yeah. So the other experiences I've had over the years, and they still happen once in a while now, are where I'm back in that house, and sometimes I'm there with my aunt and uncle and even cousin that I was close with, and they're all still living in that house. And I'm like, and they're all there, but they also they don't seem like themselves, and that's something I've had happen with other experiences that I'll end up getting into in later shows here in the series. But when I have these experiences where I feel like I'm in another version of reality, the people that are there, even if they're relatives, they don't seem quite the same as they do here. Their personalities will be a little bit different. It's just a sense I get from them that they're familiar but not quite the same. Other times I end up in that house and the people that are there are just complete strangers. I don't recognize them anywhere. And the house is always a different sort of shape. There's extra rooms sometimes. Other times there's um, it's all the same. Other times it's I even go outside and I'm just outside the house and I feel like I could almost go back home in that realm wherever it is, but I never have time to. It just goes black before after a while. But it's weird. And the basement, there's been like an extra room in the basement that had like all kinds of. It's almost like an arcade like door, like a arcade room with machines and like vending machines in it and stuff, which is really weird. But yeah, so I've had several experiences with that house and my grandparents' old house too, but more so with my aunt and uncle's house being completely different to what it was and having being huge in a couple of cases or even just a little bigger. And it, and sometimes I feel like it's fine. I'm fine with being there. And other times I don't like it. I feel like I'm not supposed to be there. And so I don't know, but it's really it's something that still happens every once in a while here to this day. Like once I don't know, once a month, every other month, I'll have a dream about that house, and it's not just a regular dream. It feels like it's a traveling to a version of that place at some point, either in time or again in some other I don't know reality or version of reality there. So. Um, And I'm trying to think if there's anything else with that house. That's really about it with that house. But but yeah, things for that, and there'll be more things that come up that are sort of parallels to that as we go through the reason. And yeah, so I'm just I'm glad I decided to go with location rather than just timeline because that would not be easy to do. So, but
Yeah, that's
yeah, in that Jen,
oh,
then
well,
we'll probably yeah. Go
yeah.
ahead. Sorry.
We got plenty to go to eventually at another time, and no, you're that's fine. I think that I wonder if if you wonder where the past went, it's moment right now, and then it's going to pass here in about an hour, and it will just be gone, and you kind of wonder about like with a location even yourself and like a person and then the location what was happening and what wasn't. It's not there now, but where does it go off to? Where does the memory of it go? And then the same with the future, that there's something that will eventually come to pass, but it's not come to pass yet, but it's going to. This kind of thing, it's hard to imagine, and it really doesn't know what's the nature of existence for us, and not just for us, but like for the environment of the world we're living in. Like, is there some realm where the past all goes and you're able to go and see it? And what does it look like? Does it look abandoned, or is it just like it was? So it's really strange about that, you know. And sometimes seeing a house that's empty, of course, sometimes a house is empty. I mean, it's like
Right.
when you get a like a mirror and you look into a mirror and you can see behind you into the room, and seeing behind you into the room, and you can't see that, but it's always there like that. There could be anything happening behind you and you don't know it because you can't see it. So kind of going into this sort of, I guess, this mind and seeing things that are happening, but you don't know that they're happening and don't see that they're happening unless you're in that state of mind, and then you do. And so I think that could be applied to a person or a location. This ability to see something that um, is happening, but it's like being able to see with eyes in the back of your head type of thing. But that relate actually experiences in a location even, and there may be more to them than we're thinking as far as even what kind of entities are in the world. So who knows? But there's just so much that's unknown, and if it is, you know, no one really pinned it down yet. But
oh yeah, I always think of all this as it's not a case of it's this or it's that. Well, it could be this and it could be that as well. So that's why I love looking at all these things, and my experiences have really driven me to look into all these things and really answers. But it's at least we can find patterns sometimes from there, and that's all I've ever really. That's what I try to do is see what kind of patterns I can come up with my own experiences and everything I hear read from others and yeah. So, but I think that's a good place to stop for this episode here. Uh, I mean, we'll get into my grandparents' house probably next time. And well, the next one in the series, we I don't think we don't have to next week exactly, but the next episode in this series, I'll cover my grandparents' house. Um, my apartment itself that I live in right now may take a couple episodes. Who knows? But and then there's other things. The training center in Kalamazoo that I went to. I had all kinds of experiences there. So I think sorting it out by location is definitely going to be the way to do it in general. So, but yeah, thank you for being here, Jess, and I'm looking forward to more of these shows whenever we do them in the future.
me too. All right, that sounds good. And I think that the location that's a good way to handle it. We'll just do it that way. That's so if they have
No problem. And I will talk to you later and and talk to you next time on the show in the week or two whenever you're able to stop by again.
Okay, have a good night.
So
Thank you.
you too. Yep. And everyone, thank you for listening in, whether you're here for the live and we'll do this again at some point. I like to alternate every week, do a different kind of show for the longer show. So it won't be next week that we continue this series, but it'll be another time. And thank you all again for being here as much as you can and supporting the show in all the ways. Remember to check out all the links in the episode description for friends of the show, but also for my own things and other things. I have a weekly blog post that I put on Substack where I also post my shows. And also I announced here in the Discord server the other day I finished the rough draft of a novel, science fiction novel, and began getting that edited and figured out, and eventually, in some form or another, it will be published. So that I'm excited to get that going as well. Thank you all again, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. And take care.